We are counting for development, yeah. We are counting for policy making, yeah. We are counting for budgeting, high population and housing census.
The Population and Housing Census is a national priority development program, and we put emphasis on the fact that it is a national priority development program because at Ghana Statistical Service, we are advocating that unlike other development programs, it is the single most important exercise for the nation that gives us a better understanding of what has happened in the past, what is happening currently, and what is going to happen in the future. We put it into these three perspectives because it's a decennial activity, which means that it has to be done every 10 years. And within the 10 years, it has to be the population has to be projected, and on an annual basis as a country, we should know what our population status is. So that gives us the futuristic perspective. In 2000, as a country, we were obliged to do the population and housing census. The same occurred in 2010, and Ghana Statistical Service is in readiness to conduct the 2020 population and housing census. In furtherance to this, we say it is a national priority development program because it gives us three perspectives in our development agenda. The first has to do with the denominator that we need in all the social economic interventions that we engage in as a country. So for instance, if you are thinking about all the initiatives that the incumbent government has initiated, one of the things that we want to find out is how it is being distributed across the nations. The second thing that we want to find out is who is getting what, and that gives us the level of disaggregation or granularity that we need as far as interventions are concerned. So in a nutshell, we say that the population housing census gives us a denominator that we need to thrive our developmental interventions on.
The Ghana Statistical Service, as the National Statistical Office, has the responsibility of ensuring that there's credible data in the country for planning, business decision-making, and for evaluation of projects and programs. The exercise that gives us data to the lowest level of disaggregation is the population and housing census. Because of the cost involved in undertaking population and housing censuses, it is done once in every 10 years. The last time we carried out a census was in 2010, and Cabinet has given approval for us to conduct a census in 2020. In a census, you take the opportunity of asking questions on issues that are of relevance to the development of the country. And one of the questions, one of the topics is disability. We are living in a community where people are born with some form of disability, others acquire it as they go through life. So it is important to know the type of disability that's affecting people, the severity of the disability, so that we are able to plan for them. And as the Sustainable Development says, we should leave no one behind. So let's not leave persons with disability behind. But the challenge we have is that during such exercises such as the population and housing census, some cultures and some communities do not want persons, their relatives with disability to be, brought out, to be involved, for us to talk to them and, take information on their disability status and the severity of it. And so I want to use this opportunity to encourage and to urge our brothers and sisters who have persons with disability to come out, because they are important. We don't know, until you die, you don't know whether you become a disabled or not. And so it is important that we plan for these people. So it is important that we bring all these people out to answer our questions, just like any other person. We are going to come out with the data to indicate the literacy status, the educational status of these persons with disability, the type of disability, the severity of it, where the people are, so that it will help us in planning. And so I want to urge every person, if you have a relation who has a disability, please don't leave them out when you are giving information on the household.
We are counting for planning. We are counting for development.
The 2020 Population and Housing Census is going to help the health sector to have records on the number of health facilities per district and by type and their locations using the GPS coordinates. It's also going to help us to compute the fertility rate in the country, and this time round we can even get it at the district level, of which one can use it to strategize when it comes to family planning issues. The immunization coverage per district is also one key area. Usually, health sector collaborates with Ghana Statistical Service to get a population of under 1 year per district. Of course, we've created more districts and new regions. So the 2020 census is going to help us get new figures for all the districts in the country, about 270 statistical districts or 216 administrative districts. We are also having information on mortality. So at the end of the day, we can compute maternal mortality rates. We can also compute deaths which were caused by either accidents or homicides. Another area of importance is housing. At the end of the day, we can determine whether there are congestions when it comes to housing facilities per the population in the country. We also have a section on sanitation, where we would determine the type of toilet facilities we are using. It has health implications when it comes to cholera, when it comes to hygiene, when it comes to outbreak of typhoid and so on and so forth. There is another aspect of sanitation which this census is also going to bring out, that's disposal of our waste. What method are we using? Is it waste collection? Is it just dumping it at dumping sites? Or are we putting it behind our structures or into gutters? All these things have health implications, of which the health sector, in collaboration with the local government and even an institution like Zumilion, can strategize to help minimize the spread of these refuse in our environment.
It is often said that if you cannot measure, you cannot manage. The 2020 Population and Housing Census would help us to measure the employed population and the unemployed population within the country. For the employed population, we're going to ask questions about them to be able to know who the employed population are. We will also be able to know the characteristics of this population. For instance, we'll be able to tell which sectors of the economy, which subsectors of the economy are engaging the employed population. The number of hours of work is also going to be determined. For the unemployed population, we'll be able to identify them and be able to tell which group of people are unemployed. All this information will effectively help Ghana to be able to plan for the population. And so we plead with you that as the census officials come to your homes in 2020, give them all the needed support by providing the needed information about your work situation.
The 2020 Population and Housing Census, we want to know those who are migrants and those who are not migrants. And we will ask questions about where a particular person was born. And out of that, we will know whether you are a migrant or not a migrant. There are categories of the population who, for them, they have never moved in their lifetime. And for those persons, we consider them as non-migrants or that's lifetime non-migrant. In their life, they have never moved. Whereas there are others too who have moved in their lifetime. With this one, we have international migrants and then internal migrants. And before people move, they have to take concrete decisions. So we are asking questions on the reason why a particular person will move from one country to another or from one locality to another locality. They may take key reasons like they move because of employment or to join family people or because there is a conflict or something of that sort, and for that matter, they are moving. Or possibly they are also moving purposely because of what education or to look for greener pastures and all those things. So these are key issues which will help the government or other policy makers to plan for the country. That is the reason why we are asking. And you know, as you've been hearing, migration is a very key issue in the whole world. It's a topical issue. So there are a lot of policies surrounding migration. And for that matter, as a country, there is a need for us to collect data on the migratory status of the population. So these are some of the things which the 2020 Population and Housing Census will capture and for the purpose of planning.
Moving forward, what we're going to do in 2020 is to ensure that we have the basis to track what has been done in the past. So we're following on the same set of questions that we had been using in the previous censuses, and obviously because of change of time, we've added on questions that would give us contemporary information based on things that are happening. So with the 2020 Population Housing Census, we're going to talk to households, we're going to identify structures, and the instrument will be based on 11 thematic areas. The first thematic area will look at geographical information, which will give us a sense of identifying households and identifying the locations of structures that we have in this country. In recent times, this has become very necessary because the longitudes and latitudes gives us an opportunity to combine surveys and censuses, and that gives us an opportunity to have a more coherent data. The second component has to do with the socio-demographic characteristics, which will give us a sense of the number of people who are usually in the household, visitors, and those who are not our usual members but are currently absent. The third component would give us information on literacy and education. This is a critical indicator for our national development agenda. And the fourth component gives us information on economic activity, which will give us an opportunity to look into detail the employment, unemployment, and economic activity characteristics of the country. What Ghana Statistical Service is doing uniquely in 2020 is to go forward to look at vulnerability as far as employment is concerned. Beyond economic activity, we touch on specific issues that affect fragile groups in this country. So one of the components within the 2020 PAC will look at characteristics issues in connection with people with disability, and we're going to collect information on issues related to the use of information and communications technology. The other components that we're going to collect information on has to do with fertility and mortality. You would agree that as a nation, in terms of our population growth, there are three pivotal issues that we need to pay attention to. One is migration issues, the other is fertility, and the other is mortality. So we're going to have three components that touches on these areas, which are migration, fertility, and mortality. The last two domains for the 2020 Population Housing Census would reflect issues concerning housing and sanitation. Both are issues that are affecting our development, and we think it's about time for us to know the housing deficit, the housing stock, so that moving forward, all the uncompleted structures that we have, we get a sense of the extent to which we're going to inform policy on how we can address the housing gap that we have. Sanitation, obviously, is one of the flagship programs that the government has identified, so it is imperative that the Population Housing Census gives us an opportunity to look into sanitation in more detail. So in a nutshell, this is what is going to go into the 2020 Population and Housing Census. And by this medium, we are encouraging all individuals in the country to participate fully in the process.
Population and housing census.